2, 3. Yay! I win.
I guess sometimes it's just a man's thing lah. No, we find it a bit hard to swallow to apologize. Yeah, I really appreciate lah that sometimes even if I'm in the wrong, she will take the initiative first. That sort of softens a lot lah. A lot of things. Then after that, you can really talk.
Yeah, I think for me, I would say sorry. Firstly, I like to eat conflicts for breakfast, but I don't like conflicts in my relationship. And conflicts I find is something that can be avoided if one party is willing to just diffuse the situation. And a lot of times I find just humbling ourselves and just taking responsibility for our part, because but when things go wrong, it's not always one person's fault. Sometimes it could be I've heard wrongly, I've said it in a certain way where he misunderstood. For me, it's really I've nothing to lose, but all I want is to gain a deeper understanding in our relationship. It's not about who's right and who's wrong, but really at the end is, can we come to a deeper understand each other, and then really come to a place where we know what we really mean, and rather than just what we think each other is saying.
We rush to say sorry to each other.
I'm the one who is the first to say sorry lah. In fact, many times in our arguments, I'll be the first one to hold my wife's hand. I look in her eyes, I say, "Claire, I'm sorry, you're wrong."
My version is, I'm the first to say sorry whenever I realize and I'm convinced that I am in the wrong. So usually it takes a process, because I don't initially start off thinking I need to apologize. But usually this is what we do in prep as well. We will sit down and we will actually use the communication skills. And through that, there are times when I realize that, hey, after talking to my husband, the problem wasn't him, but I realized where I need to take ownership, and that's when I apologize. Yeah. So it does help when we do communication, communication skills.
Forgiveness is so important, because we will mess up.
Yes.
Right? We will mess up.
And we want to give a sincere apology, which means that you need to be convinced that you did do something wrong.
See, I must add this to say that I still apologize, but sometimes I'll suck a little bit first,
A little bit?
before I apologize.
So again, definition of a little bit varies from individual to individual. Me, why? Because I'm a person that don't really like conflict. I did personality test. So to me, the faster we get to the closure to a particular conflict or a disagreement or quarrel, the better it is. Even sometimes if it's not my fault, I would apologize, maybe not so sincerely. But if it's definitely me, I will be the first to acknowledge that I am sorry lah. I think one thing that helps when you feel very upset and all, the timeout concept is very important. You have to understand that sometimes in an argument, right, that particular state, the emotion that you have and the anger you have towards your spouse is not a natural thing. It probably happens like 1% of the time you are together. So you need to understand that this is a temporal state. And if you were to keep quarreling and then you let the emotions get the better of you, it'll get worse, or it just makes that particular argument worse. Right? So I think the concept of timeout is very important. Right? That both of us need to agree that, hey, I'm calling a timeout. I'm not walking out of this conversation, but I need to deal with my emotions first. Therefore, I'll call a timeout. It's important that the person that calls the timeout also re-engages later to say, oh, I'm the one that called for a timeout. I need to time in and let's continue talking about it. I'm ready to re-talk and engage about this topic.
Yeah. And don't use timeout to think of rebuttals and your defenses, right? Timeout is really for us to deal with the emotions within ourselves. Why are we having all these? And to think back, actually it's a very trivial matter. Do we need to go into this and pray, really, during that time, pray and ask God's grace and to see things through God's lenses and seek a reconciliation.
Again, it's not arguments and anger towards one another is not the default state. You fall into it sometimes, but you must remember you want to get out of it. Usually happen in the car. So driving, you cannot run away from one another, so you have to listen to that person. And then I think driving is also a very bad time to have an argument because it's potentially very dangerous. So the radio came on, always talking about the COVID situation. And I told her, hey, you don't hear anything about COVID anymore. Then she started making a very nasty impression on me. You and your COVID, no COVID. I was very, very annoyed because I think also partly before that we were like having a little squabble about some decisions. Right? And after that I was very upset. It just kind of triggered something. It hit like a boiling point. And then we quarreled.
Yeah, if you look back, it's actually very
Very
trivial.
nothing,
Yeah, it's very trivial. But it did spark something. It did trigger something for
The
us.
argument lasted for I think 2 days, I think.
Because he insisted that I did not apologize, but I insisted that I went sorry.
So when it comes to the topic of apology, the person who apologizes thinks that they apologize now. And they apologize for their own sake. I'm sorry lah.
No, I went sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm sorry you don't like my impression of you. So sometimes that's not really apology, right? The apology is for the person that receives the apology. So the person needs to receive it. Yes, I understand that you are sorry and I forgive you. Right? To me, the apology doesn't end until there's an acknowledgement to the apology. But for her, I'm sorry.
No, I went sorry. You see? It's selective hearing.
1, 2, 3. Yes.
So recently we were planning to do a bit of minor reno in our house. As we were planning, then scope start to get wider. She was thinking whether to change the kitchen cabinet or not. Initially we agreed, okay, it's still new, but then it sort of lingered a bit. So we were trying to get a conclusion whether are we changing the kitchen cabinets or not.
I don't think it was a very big issue. Maybe it disturbed here, but I think for me, it's sometimes that whole process of arguing or talking through is a thought process to analyze and to think through, and hopefully can come to a clearer conclusion. More like a brainstorming for me, like what do you think? Do you think should have, should not have, should have, should not have, kind of thing. But for me, I put my son because I think this was more significant to me because I think there were things on how to manage parenting, like my second boy. In terms of his academic, because he does have some challenges with his learning. So I think in the early phases where we were not too sure of how did that manifest, we were struggling whether should we be firm with him or should we give in to him or things like that. So that was the part I felt was more for me. I felt was really more stressful for me because we couldn't quite see eye to eye, but yet we both wanted what's good for my son.
3. Yeah, it was over the fact that he spoke to me in a tone that I did not like. And so I was very specific. I said, I do not like you to tell me to keep my mouth shut. So he explained by saying that, no, that was not how I said it. Well, that's how I remembered it. And he says, but that's not how I said it. So I said, you know what? I think we'll leave it as that. We agree to disagree and call a timeout on it and process about what happened and how it was said. That was what we did.
Sometimes we interpret events differently. At the end of the day, what helped us get through it was giving each other benefit of the doubt and being willing to just acknowledge maybe, in my case, maybe I didn't say it the way I thought I said it.
Yeah, and for my case, to give him the benefit of the doubt was perhaps he was tired, he was busy, something was on his mind, and it didn't come out right. But I did say my piece, what I felt that I did not like, but at the end of the day, it was not so much about trying to get an apology as it is to try and understand my partner and also to ask yourself, is this something worth fighting about? Or can we just let it go?
Yep.